Well, now you've got a podcast where you can kind of pretend like you're one of these guys. This is yeah, Record Store
Yeah,
Day, the Record Store Day
yeah.
podcast, correct?
Yeah.
There we go. Let's plug that. Here we go.
Okay.
Yay!
How did you get involved with them?
Yeah, it's very interesting how I got involved with them, to me anyway. The two co-founders are Carrie Colleton and Michael Kurtz. They're kind of the front of the organization. And a few years ago, Michael Kurtz had seen that I'd written a book about Todd Rundgren. I wrote a book called A Wizard, a True Star, Todd Rundgren in the Studio, which was a long study of the golden era of Todd Rundgren as a producer. And I, as opposed to an artist, which I also talk about, but mainly focused on him being a guy who made records. So when I did that, the guy from Record Store Day, Michael Kurtz in this case, contacted me and said, we're doing a special product for Record Store Day, and we'd love you to do like a liner note or something like that for it. And I thought, sure, great. And then we started talking, and I really related to Michael's mission, and what I later learned is also Carrie Colleton's mission, which is, to really, it's not just about being a guild for record stores. They really believe that record stores as a community, as a place in each town where people, that it could be a viable proposition, even though people had been saying that record stores were dead and that in digital world, that stuff wouldn't happen. And this was many years ago that they decided to protect everybody and create a sort of a network that promoted the idea of going to the record store. People who go to record stores every day probably didn't care that much about one day a year being called Record Store Day, because in many ways it's like, that's the tourist day, whatever, but what it did do is it promoted the idea of that every year we would pay homage to and perhaps patronize these businesses. Then they started creating special records with the labels and with the artists, so that there'd be a reason to go into the record stores, is to buy these special Record Store Day exclusives, which are limited editions and often mostly physical product, because that's what they're selling, but sometimes they're CDs, sometimes they're vinyl. And that organization is the people who sponsor me, because what I said was, I would love to do a podcast. Would you guys be a sponsor? At the same time, Michael called me back and said, we were actually thinking we should have a podcast and you should host it. So we worked out a deal. My whole interest was, I want to interview music people generally. I want to interview musicians, producers, and anything related to the idea of making records. But what that is expanded to is I also interview record stores, record merchants, people who are lifers selling records. And that is beautiful. What happens is I discover a world that I wasn't really part of, and it all connects. So a typical show will have, someone from a record store, as well as, like, last episode was Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, and he's a huge record fan. So he's not just talking about Def Leppard, he's talking about buying Bowie records and T-Rex records when he was a kid. And I always ask everybody, what was the first record you ever bought? And it's a great conversation starter, but it's a fascinating thing. If you listen to every episode, you'll start to hear, like, a lot of people bought Kiss Alive or Kiss Destroyer as their first record. A lot of people bought Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation as their first record. And it's really interesting to hear the different, and Monkeys and Kinks and all that stuff comes up. But it's really interesting to me. And I'm genuinely interested in the people I talk to. So that's the best part of it. There's your answer.
There you go. Okay, so my first question that I have on my sheet was, what is your first record?
I believe the first record I ever got was Abbey Road, the Beatles, and my dad took me down.
Is that any good?
It's a grower.
Okay, it's a
and
grower.
I always tell people, they always thank me for turning them on to this band. But
all right, good to know. Okay, I'm writing this down.
Now, my parents are from Liverpool, so so they knew about this band, and they said, it'll grow on you. But I remember when Let It Be, it was before when Abbey Road came out after Let It Be. So I remember when Let It Be came out, I went to see the film with my mom, and then Abbey Road came out, I think, a year later. No, actually Abbey Road came out first. That's right. So it was my dad taking me down to, they were recorded back. Okay, so Abbey Road was recorded after Let It Be, but Let It Be came out later, just so you know. My dad took me down to Sam the Record Man, which was a huge 3-story, I think 3 stories, a big record store in downtown Toronto. It was super influential to me. Sam the Record Man was, I don't know if this is a visual podcast, but you guys can see that poster on the wall with Wilco is based on the Sam the Record Man logo. And that's why I have that, because I'm from Toronto, and the Wilco, one of the guys from Wilco was talking to me, and he said, "Oh, we have a poster you'd like." So Sam the Record Man was this 3-story, what I call the fun house of records. The 3rd floor was just jazz, so I didn't go up there much as a kid, but my dad took me downtown to buy Abbey Road, and we drove down this highway called the Don Valley Parkway that goes into the city from the suburbs, and it was just a magical day, like to go and buy the brand new Beatle album. The cover with it's like a street in England with 4 guys walking across the street, doing that thing that tourists do. No, I'm just kidding. They started it. Hey, you know how everybody always crosses Abbey Road? Let's do it on our album cover. That's right.
It's a very busy street, by the way.
They had Instagram accounts. Yeah.
Have you crossed that street? It's very busy.
I have crossed that street. It is very busy. Yeah. Yeah. They should just have a special. They should just make it a pedestrian mall and have the Abbey Road traffic go around it.
Right.
I was just there last summer, actually. I was working on something, and I was lucky to be there. And I was living really close to St. John's Wood, which is where Abbey Road Studios is. Yeah. So that was really cool. I went by there, and it's always clogged from all over the world. Everyone comes there.
Yeah. I know.
Did you get a picture crossing the street?
I have had a picture of me alone crossing the street, wearing a songwriter T-shirt that I got in Japan. It just says songwriter, and it's dumb, and I rarely show it to anyone. I have another one where I'm standing there pointing to the sign for Abbey Road that has 100 signatures of everyone who's come by there. It's totally graffitied out. That to me is almost more interesting because it's not the usual shot from Abbey Road. But yeah, everyone's. I think Barney the dinosaur's even gone across that street. So. And he's pretty discerning.
Yeah.
So I've
never
heard.
met the man.
Yeah.
Never met